If you have a Nearpod account, then if you log in, it'll just know your name. If you don't have an account, then it's really no difference in the experience whether you log in or not.
Oh, I don't know.
The girls in our last session, they had the Padlet back channel for us, and it was like they couldn't keep up with it. They had one person that was just doing the back channel. She was like, "I'm sorry guys, I just
do as I say, as I do Nearpod."
So I complimented them.
Make sure the camera's on.
Obviously.
It's a thing that works and it's needed, so that's great.
So the opening screen is a 3D image that you can kind of click and zoom around. I've taken to adding something like that or a virtual tour for my opening screen all the time. That way, as different people log in at different times, you have something to keep you entertained.
You ready?
All right, Michelle.
All right, so welcome to Do As I Say, Not As I Do, using Nearpod for PD. Before we begin, please turn your cell phone ringer off. Fire regulations require that all session attendees have a chair. Good. Don't sit in the, no sitting on the floor or anything like that. If you're plugging in a device, please keep in mind that people may be moving around, so devices may be damaged. Act 48 is still available at PDC as we offered in the past. However, no codes will be distributed this year. You'll be able to submit your Act 48 online via the evaluation process. You can find the links in the Attendee Service Center on the PDC webpage. And now I present to you Matthew Nickerson.
Thank you. So this is my second time here at PDC. I wasn't here last year, but was the year before. So I'm coming from a little bit south, Baltimore, Anne Arundel County, Maryland, a little school district with 83,000 students. And I work full-time doing instructional technology, so I get to teach all of the high school teachers how to use things like Nearpod. I used to say we're bipolar. I was told bilingual sounds better with Microsoft and Google. So we have, yeah, that's the bulk of my stuff. Nearpod, Microsoft, and Google takes up probably 80% of what I get to do trainings on. So Nearpod, if you're not familiar with it, is a way of taking the stand in the front and present presentation, whether that's Google Slides or PowerPoint, and putting on all student devices so it's interactive. I like to use the analogy of I have 8 kids. I'm told to pause after I say that. 3 students, 3 children. And I've coached all of them in soccer, and now that I don't coach anymore, I had to stay in the car during practices because I get that critical. And I can't stand to see kids just standing in line. Give everyone a ball, have them doing something with the ball at all times. And that's kind of the philosophy of Nearpod. And that's how a lot of different technologies are moving. Get something in everybody's hands, everybody's constantly engaged. Smart boards were great when they came out, but to be able to get that same interaction for every individual, that's the idea. All right, so again, this is just for the opening screen. I do have the teacher view showing up here because we're going to show you how to use Nearpod, and it's important to see what the teacher sees. But if I'm working with students, I never have the teacher view up there. I run it from a second device. If you forget and you start it up here, then you log on to the second device, and it asks you, hey, you're trying to launch a presentation that you already have running. Do you want to just control it from here? And you click yes. And I can actually bounce between them, which is kind of convenient, except that every once in a while I'll forget and I'll set this down and I'll be running it from here. And sometimes you'll get a screen that comes up saying, this has audio or this has video, you want to run it. There'll be a question that comes up. And if you don't answer the question on both, then they're not in sync anymore. And if you want to go back to this, suddenly you're rewinding everybody like 5 or 6 slides. So that's the one danger of having it run from 2 devices. So if, again, if you didn't need to see the teacher view, I would go ahead and close this right now. All right, so here's our title. That's me. Well, I used to say it was a very neglected blog there, the other IT. It was instructional technology, not information technology. I think I've posted 12 times in 2 years, but I just started a series called 365 Uses for Office 365. So up until yesterday, I'd gone 12 days in a row. And then I tweaked those out as well. Yeah. So here's our 4 steps. What's good for the goose? A Bible verse. We'll explain that when we get to it. How can Nearpod help? And then your turn is where hopefully by the end we'll have some time for you to actually make something in Nearpod. An hour, that's a little bit tight for that. Possible. does that normally end?
It's good for the answer.
Yeah, and what's the whole point of that saying?
It's good for you, it's good for me.
Good for you, good for me. All right. So let's start with a little bit of an icebreaker, sort of. Getting to know you. All right, not really an icebreaker. This is more me getting to know you. Have you personally conducted PD in the last 6 months? So here's the teacher view. Sometimes you don't want kids or adults seeing what's showing, seeing the results up there. So I'm going to log in as a student up here. And close this door. At any point, you can share results with everybody on the screen. And you do that just by clicking the share button here. And it looks like the majority of you have more than once. We do have a couple of no's and some no answers. I'm part of the no answer. So let's do a follow-up question just for those who didn't say yes several times. Will you be conducting PD in the next 6 months? I think I can say yes. This edit answer feature is one that you can turn on or off in your account. So if you want students to be able to go back and change their answer, turn that on. If you want your answer is final, you can turn that off in your settings. So again, almost everybody said yes. Not sure what that other person's doing here, but no, just kidding. And then finally, just so I know how to break down the time here, what are you here mostly for? PD or Nearpod? What about you? Take my first giveaway break. We have brand new tattoos. So what I want to know is, one of the items that we'll be giving away is this handy eraser with the markers built in. So if you would like to be guaranteed one of these, I do have tattoos and water. If anybody's willing to put one on their face. Any takers? No. All right, well, you will have another chance. We'll have an easier way to win it. How's this going? So pretty even. We got about a third each way. Okay. That's helpful. Right, what comes to mind when you hear Power PD? Time for you to tell me. We're actually going to answer this question 2 different ways. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear PD? This is the draw it activity. If you've never seen draw it, you have the ability, first of all, to, you can close this so you can see the entire screen. You can click here to, if this was a helpful graph or something, you could make that appear large again. But if you're just ready to post your answer, you can clear that out of the way. You have a pen here with 8 different colors, and you can select how large or small the tip is. You also have highlighters. Difference between pen and highlighter is simply you can't see through the ink in the pen. You can see through the ink in the highlighter. You can click and type in your text. You can search for a picture. If you have it on your device, click Browse My Files. If not, then click on Google and do an image search. Then you have an eraser. And one of the cool things about this is it's not an either or. If you want to put in a picture and then draw a speech bubble and then type in the text for the speech, you can do all of the above. Used to be, like my number one feature request for a couple of years with Nearpod was that when I did this, you would not lose your work. Okay, so you can send this out to everybody. But what would happen is once I clicked unshare, if you hadn't submitted yours, you'd lose your work. They fixed that about a year ago. My background is special ed. I did 20 years of special education. And I had those kids who were just kind of like, this is too much choice, too many options here. They need to see some other people's ideas before they figure out what they're going to do. So it was great to be able to share out. Nobody in here, I'm sure. This is what we're trying to avoid. And one more. Other option, if I don't want to take over your screen, I can of course show the teacher view. Right now names are showing up here, but I can click to hide student names. And that way, without taking over your screen or interrupting your workflow, I can say, hey, take a look up here. Obviously, it's more of a thumbnail view. All right, so important point when you're running one of these is when you have an activity like this, warn people when you're going to leave the screen. This is one activity where Nearpod has now integrated a timer, so you can actually have a timer for this. And there's 2 other ones that are coming out soon. Not yet. But you want to warn people, if you haven't submitted something and you plan on it, we are moving on to the next screen in 3, 2, 1. So just different way to ask the same question. This is a collaborate board. Now here's one of those ones where hey, it pops up on our screens. So if I don't answer these both, then I'm going to be in different places on my 2 places. All right, would you like to approve student comments before they are posted? That's what it says. That is not what it means. What it really means is, do you trust your students? Because if you trust your students, you're going to say, no, I don't need to approve their comments. And if you teach middle school, then you're of course going to click, yes, I need to approve the comments, not just middle school. You know what no would look like. You post and it appears. So not that I don't trust you, but I'm going to click yes because I want you to see what that looks like. And then you have this handy apply for the rest of the session. So if I have another one of these coming up later and I don't want this box to pop up, I can make that go away from now on by clicking apply this the rest of the session. So this is the exact same question. And now your choices are you can type in up to 250 characters or again insert a picture. So we're not going to wait for everybody to do this, but just so you can see what it looks like. I've got a little number 2 up there, 3 now. So here are, where's Jeremiah? So you're the first one in and it's a 1-word answer. So what do you see on your screen right now?
It says pending approval.
What do you see now? Gone, yeah. I rejected his. Sorry, it was a perfectly fine answer, but it was 1 word and easy to replace. And, yeah, so if I see it and the student sees it, and that's it. If it's inappropriate, just get rid of it. As far as everybody else, approve them all. Sending them in faster than I can approve them. Gotta read this one. Caught up for now. All right, so I like to keep mine in this order. So the order right now by default is the order that you have submitted them. So if you scroll down your page, the one at the top is the first submitted, the one at the bottom are the last one submitted. If people start discovering, oh, there's little hearts there, I can like certain ones, then I can click to reorder it by the number of likes. So the most popular ones are at the top. Again, recommend that you don't do that from the beginning, because if you want to be seeing the new ones as they come in to make sure that you read them all, then leave them in chronological order until you're pretty sure everybody has had a chance to answer. so 2 different ways to solicit responses. This one is designed to be public. The other one gives more options for how people can answer it, and you can share one at a time on people's screens. Don Tapscott talking to teachers about teaching in their classroom, talking about teaching students. We're going to apply it to PD. Here's another one where it asked, hey, do you want this video to play on all devices or just this one? Here's another place to be careful if you're running it from a separate device. This is the one that's attached to the speaker. This one is not. So if I'm only running it from this device and I click this device only, then I'm going to run out to the middle over here. Or just swap the speaker cord. What this is really asking, though, is not, do you want this played only on this device? It's really asking, do your students have headphones? If they have headphones, then by all means let them play it on their own device. If they don't, then you don't want 20 different devices all half a second off from each other. This one is plugged in.
Teachers last 5.1 years because the conditions are so awful. They're underpaid. Class size 30, 40 people. They're teaching with an old model because when you have 30, 40 kids in the classroom, you can only use the broadcast model based on a lecture. I'm a teacher. I acknowledge you're a student. You're an empty vessel. You don't. Get ready. Here it comes. I define the lecture as the process whereby the notes of the lecturer go to the notes of the student without going through the brains of either. Now, I appreciate the irony that I'm up here giving a lecture, but I'm going to say a lot of stuff. You, if you're lucky, you'll retain 5% of it, or 10% of it. It's not a good way to learn.
All right, so again, he's talking to teachers about working with students, but that's not our topic today. So far today, I keep talking about when you do this with students, but you're here to consider using Nearpod for PD. So to what extent is his reasoning valid for professional development? And rather than doing this digitally again, this has been a very quiet room so far, so turn and talk to each other. There's some noise. To what extent is this valid for PD? This is, remember, we're in the section what's good for the goose.
That's my fault. Got it. Okay. I'm just making sure. But we also have to research that just that lecture method. So they have to have the
Actually, as a high school English teacher, she did share that
Here's the other point. The first thing I thought of was, I'm going to solicit it. What is it that you need to know? But when the people
not jumping into anything like that.
I don't know. So it throws back insanely on us in terms of being that expert kind of thing. So,
Alright, so let's see if you guys are as good about bringing the noise down as you were about talking to one another. So we're going to move that screen on. Alright, thank you. Anybody have maybe 1 or 2 things to share around the room? Anybody, either something you shared or something you just heard?
So we were talking about when we deliver PD, we don't always give them choice in the matter. Mm-hmm. We know what we are up here to teach you. Mm-hmm. But if with our students, we're trying to give them more voice, that giving our PD learners more choice is important. but sometimes we have to kind of define what that choice is going to be prior to the session, and then ask the right questions that guide them into the choice with us.
Which also sounds like what you would do with your students. Yeah. So did everybody hear that? Okay. Well, one more?
I have a question actually. So like on that point, like the poll that you put up where you said, well, why are you here? You know, what if it had come out, you know, a large percentage were in one category, would you have changed?
Yeah. This
Like,
I'm not changing anything because it was evenly divided. But my plan coming in was about 30 minutes on professional development, 30 minutes on Nearpod. Now, in the meantime, we're doing Nearpod. You're seeing things in Nearpod while we're going, so that gets hit on anyway. But if it was 80% Nearpod, then in my head I'd be thinking, well, you should have gone to Jeff Rothenberger's Nearpod, learning how to use Nearpod, right, which is going on right now. But that's fine. I'll just I'll do the same session he's doing instead. So you're not. That's a great point. Don't put that question in there. It's like, don't make the threat to the students that you can't follow through on.
Right.
Exactly. All right, and finally, what kinds of PD have you participated in? What formats have you already participated in? Notice this is a Collaborate board, but because I checked, don't ask that question anymore, that question wasn't asked. I did find, let's see if this works, there's been a glitch where like if I change the hide student names, show student names, it lets me re-answer that question. Let's see if that works this time. Nope, all right, maybe they fixed that. Used to be like you'd get a reset. That it would, when you change from showing student names to hiding student names, it would ask you that question again. Because I don't think I need to moderate your responses anymore. I would actually like to change that. So those of you who said Ed Camp, have you been able to do Ed Camps just within your own school building?
Yes.
Who said choice and voice? How does that work?
Yeah, so kind of going off of the Ed Camp model, where teachers get to choose what they most likely need and what their students need, but at the same time they can contribute something as well, like in a sandbox session.
Nice. Is that how yours work as well?
Yeah, they actually, our superintendent lets us send ideas too before we have it, and then they choose a couple to have sessions on, and then you go choose which one you go to.
Great. And is everybody here from Pennsylvania? My general view is that in Maryland we have huge districts, and in Pennsylvania you don't, and there's probably some exceptions to that. So when you say your superintendent, like our superintendent has 128 schools to keep track of, so they solicit things, but it gets lost in the mail. All right, very nice. All right, so we're third of the way through here. Here's our agreement. I'm not going to just talk at you. Hopefully we haven't done that too much yet. I'm going to offer you opportunities to interact and reflect, hopefully model what we're preaching, and give you some time to digest and plan this. What I ask of you is contribute to the discussions like you did both electronically and when we did it out loud. Take part in activities, participate, and don't interrupt me. Just kidding. All right, part two. So here's the Bible first. Public school teacher. All right, so the first time I did this session was for Q out in Palm Springs, if you ever get the chance. A conference out in California last year, and at the time I was teaching high school students. We were going through Romans, and just this particular verse. Whether you're familiar with the Bible or not, who knows what that verse is? Paul's saying, I'm caught up in sin, and I can't help myself. And the verse is, "Who's going to rescue me?" And that's the week we were in when I got here. It's like, so we've just kind of covered what's wrong with PD, traditional. What's going to rescue us from that? That's kind of the idea. And this is where I take off the tie. And what we're proposing as an answer is Nearpod. So I have a handful of different Nearpod shirts. This one is my favorite. There's a t-shirt here.
Yeah.
So, PD shouldn't suck. There we go. That's kind of the theme here. PD shouldn't suck. So we're going to look at a sway. How many of you have Office 365? Right, how many of you know what sway is? So what I love most about sway is having students create it. I mean, it's fine for teachers. Basically, it's a presentation tool that looks like a website. It scrolls left or right or up and down. And so if I'm going to use it as a teacher, as a presenter, it's kind of like Prezi. It's a different format. It's don't do it too often, and it's appealing. But for students, it uses AI for design. I mean, what do your kids spend all their time doing on PowerPoints and Google Slides? Different color on every page, different font on every page. First of all, that looks atrocious, but they spend all their time doing that. It uses AI for that, so they just have to focus on the content. And they actually just came out with, they can create in Word, and then click Word Online or Word Desktop, click on File and Transform, and it transforms a Word document into a sway automatically. So that's kind of a new tool. So sway is one of many, many, many tools that you can embed into a Nearpod. So this sway has 10 different articles, and each of these articles talks about a different format or different ideas for professional development. So you can scroll down, get an idea for which one you would like to read, and essentially this turns it into a jigsaw. So you click on the article you want. It takes you to, getting ahead of myself. You can see what the articles are here. Then down at the bottom, there's also a Padlet page. And this Padlet has a link to a separate Padlet for each article. Okay, so you've got all the articles. You pick which article you want to do. You go to that Padlet page. The link to the article is on that page as well. Everybody reads their own article. Everybody posts what they want about that article. Everybody has access to all of the Padlets. So it's very much a digital jigsaw. So we're not actually going to have you do that. I mean, feel free to look at the articles. This is a good point in time to show you the notes feature. So you can go back and look at these anytime you want. Right side of your screen, you have this little pencil and paper icon. And this allows you to save the entire presentation. You can send an email, Google Drive, or OneDrive. You have to pick one. Once you pick one, then those options go away and it becomes a note-taking space over there. I have found, I'm a big fan of Microsoft, but the Google Drive, it syncs better. I've had issues sometimes using the OneDrive through here. So what it saves is everything. So you've taken some quizzes in here. It saves the questions with your answers color-coded right or wrong. It saves the poll result. You can click and see the results just like when I click to share with everybody. The Collaborate boards, they show up as a web link. You click on the link, you see everybody's result. It saves absolutely everything. You also have the ability to literally take notes on pages. If you're going to have students do this, when I click on Google Drive and go to my Google Drive, it just saves it there. So if you want students to have it in a particular place, have them go to their Google Drive first, create a folder for Nearpod notes. I've done this before, so it remembers my selection. But when they go here, they can't create a folder at that time. They have to put it in an existing folder, or else it's just going to go into their general Google Drive. So if you're going to have students do this, go to their Google Drive first, create a Nearpod notes folder, and then when they go to save their notes, choose that folder. So at this point, I can now take notes on this slide. At the bottom, there's a notes navigator. So I can go back and take notes on any previous slide as well. It doesn't take you to that slide here. It just kind of opens a thumbnail, and you can take notes back there. That's the notes navigator. So since we're not actually doing this activity, but there are some really good articles in here. A lot of them are blogs. Some of them are actually technical papers. So you can look through that at your leisure. not actually doing that because this is a little bit shorter session. Skip that part as well. So kind of finishing up the PD, the specifically PD part before we get into specifically Nearpod. Again, I have two different versions of asking this question. This is a poll in Nearpod, so you can select as many answers as are true. So if you've been through all of these, then by all means, read all of them. And there's a lot of choices here. You have to scroll down to see them all. But these are not all of the types that were mentioned in those 10 articles. So I had to limit the number of choices because there's, I think, 8. Yeah, 8 is the max for this. Wow, it's filling in. Oh, there's 10. Sorry, 9. Is this sharing on your screen? My screen seems to be lagging. I clicked to share the results with you all, and I'm just not seeing it. I'm not sure why mine's not showing. There it is. Okay, no gamification. Yeah, that one's the most intensive to plan. I'm not surprised about that. So again, limited to, it was 8, I think, responses there. Another option would be to send this as a Google form. You don't have to answer this one. It's the same question, but Google allows more answer choices. So I was able to go through, and everything that I pulled out of the articles is now represented in here. And so this is just a general principle. I've now taken you to Padlet, taken you to Sway, taken you to Google. Where technology gets really, really powerful, exponentially powerful, is when you can find ways to combine it. Nearpod is awesome for what it does, but I took you to Padlet, even though there's a collaborate in Nearpod, because Padlet has more ways to contribute to a collaborative board. If I don't have, Padlet's fine for standalone too. Like if I just want people to collaborate, I'm not going to put it in a Nearpod if that's the only thing I want them to do. And this is true for other tools like Smart's Notebook, or I'm sure Promethean has something similar, where there's there's a collaborate there as well. If it's part of my presentation, by all means I'm going to do that. But when I need something more, feel free to. There's a little bit you can do with vocabulary here, but nothing like Quizlet. So if I'm going to do vocabulary, I'm probably going to embed a link to Quizlet. Don't say where this is. If you know where this is, do not say anything. This is a 360 tour, and you can click on the screen and zoom around. Well, it works better with the mouse. I'm having issues with it. If you right-click on it, I'm just showing you this because students will find it. I know absolutely no educational value of this, but if you right-click on it, you can get to some other views, like the mini view on what this does except cause seizures, but it's on there, so just be forewarned. Fish view is actually nice. It's what realtors use to, not to make a room look bigger, but just so you can see the whole, all right, sometimes it's to make a room look bigger, but just so you can see an entire room. So one of the things I love about this is in my district, 360cities.net is blocked because it's crowdsourced. And there are some lovely and very school-appropriate pictures of Times Square on 360cities.net. But if I had happened to upload pictures from when I was there a couple years ago, the cowboy and his girlfriends would not be safe for school. And you can upload that there. So we have the ability to use this through Nearpod because Nearpod curates it. So it's actually a tool that's blocked in our district that's not blocked through Nearpod. So that's kind of nice. So I said don't say anything if you know where this is because it's prize time. I'm going to do an on-the-fly activity. So I click Add Activity, and I'm going to throw in an open-ended question. This was not part of my presentation, but I just thought of it, so I'm going to throw it in there. As specifically as possible. Where is this? Don't say anything that's for prizes. Right, so put my student view up there so you can't see other people's answers. So if you don't have the luxury of having a second device to do this from, and you want to be able to check students, what answers are coming in, if you have a remote where you can freeze your projector, that's kind of like the best workaround. Participate as well.
Well, true.
Alright, so then what I like to do is start projecting. Start projecting the least helpful answer first, which is my answer.
Followed by mine.
Oh, wait, and Katrina, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it doesn't tell you the names, except I just told you. But if you're doing this with students, they'll yell out, "That's mine!" And this defeats the whole purpose of.
Yeah, it's mine.
Italy. Okay, then we get to ones where it is the right country. Greece. Not the right location in Greece. And then we got Bill. Come on up, Bill. And Megan. Come on up, Megan. Bill and Megan, come on up. You get your first choice of the prizes up here, because it is Santorini, which I've been told if you want to get there, do it soon, because because of the immigration issues in Greece, they're planning on closing the island to tourists. I don't know when, but yeah, if you want to get there soon. All right, so how do I get out of this? Close. So I'm stuck in this. I'm stuck in this slide that I just did on the fly. The on the fly things are cool in that when you go to your notes, even though this wasn't part of the original presentation, it is saved in your notes. When I go to the report afterwards to see how my students did, these results are saved there. But if I'm a high school teacher or middle school and I'm going to run this same session next period or tomorrow, because I made this on the fly, it's not part of the presentation. So I'm either going to, during my planning time, go add this question in my presentation, or I'm going to have to do it on the fly again next time. So it saves the results, doesn't save it as part of the activity, as part of the presentation. So I'm going to click close the activity. First time I ever did this, it kind of worried me because this is exactly what it looks like when you want to close the Nearpod presentation. It is actually just this activity though that we're closing. So there we are back to Santorini. And Nearpod, let's focus on Nearpod. Right, so first of all, there's a ready-to-run collection. I'm not going to spend much time on the ready-to-run collection because it costs additional. So if your district has, like our district has the district license for Nearpod, it's the top level as far as what you can do in it, but it doesn't come with all the content. You still have to buy the content, some of the content separately. It comes with content, but they have special categories of content that are extra. So the ready-to-run is a fabulous collection. I know nothing about pricing. So they've got, so it's using Nearpod to teach other kinds of PDs. You've got engagement, equity, mentoring teachers, classroom management, lots on literacy, more classroom management, equitable classrooms. I wish I could give people like temporary access to this. That's something I requested. Is I could give like a week-long, 30-day trial or something. Right? So we're still working on it. Differentiation, English language learners. We even have stuff, play. How do you play for pre-K, third grade? Lesson planning, writing objectives, creativity, restorative practices, social emotional learning is big nowadays, very trendy, and always important, but it's finally getting some attention. Cooperation, a little bit specific subjects, teaching with technology, teaching math. So all of these are like full, 30 to 1 hour sessions that have the kinds of activities in them that you just experienced. So it blend. All of them also have icebreakers that they call, they have a different name for it, like a salt shaker or something like that. But they all start with different icebreakers. And sometimes I'll just go in and grab an icebreaker to use for another purpose, because there's some really good ones in here. So let's just grab a random one to preview for you. Shows you who made it, who designed it. Sprinkle, sorry, there we go. There's a sprinkle to break the ice. Blind disco. Ooh. Turn off the lights or close your eyes. Play a song. You've got to be careful there. No moving around a whole lot. Dance like nobody's watching. There we go. Then you jump into the actual lesson. Starts with what are we trying to accomplish, and then very similar to what you just experienced over the last half an hour. So there's ready to run PD. If you don't have the budget for that, though, let's create your own. Nearpod has content for pretty much all subject areas. Right now, at this moment, when you go to search for things in Nearpod, there is the Nearpod lesson library. You used to have a Nearpod author program where you or I could go through this rigorous training, and then you could write your own stuff and put it on there. And the ones that exist, they've left, but that program no longer exists. Now everything is very snowy. Now everything is designed either by Nearpod or by their publishing partners. And I should probably have you guys following along here. Some of you probably already have. If you just open a new tab and click on Nearpod, type in nearpod.com. How many of you already have accounts? All right, so we'll slow down even more and give some of you time to create accounts. I do have a code that we're going to give you in a couple minutes, where you can get 3 months free of the Gold edition, so you get additional features for that.
How do you tell which level you're at?
If you have, instead of sub-plans, if it's asking you to buy or upgrade, then you have the free silver edition. If you have sub-plans, then you have something more than that.
Mine says sub-plan beta, just like yours.
Okay, so you either have the Gold edition or school or district. Those are the 3 paid levels.
Okay.
So if this is brand new to you, then scrolling down here is kind of useful just to see what kinds of things there are here. If I'm actually looking for a lesson, though, I do not scroll down. I go into the filters and start searching for something. But again, if you're brand new to this, then you can see the exclusive content are the ones that, again, you have to purchase separately. There's different subjects. Virtual reality stuff, column or a row just for new, search by specific publishers. So again, nice way to get an overview, but not a great way to find the lesson that you want. We're going to do some searching for that. When you do search via the filters, there's ELA, Science, Math, Social Studies, and Other. So world languages is not one that would just kind of be grouped under Other. It doesn't have its own piece under the filters. You can search for free or paid specifically, and there's also the ability to search by state standards. So I'm familiar with Maryland. So let's see what we have for Pennsylvania. Now, once you choose your state, and then choose your subjects and your grade level. Then the strands become available to choose. Not guaranteed to have something for every strand. This is still somewhat new. Here we go. We got 2 things for free. There's a lot more if you include paid. So at this point, that's what you're limited to in terms of what you can download. Right now, there's about 300 Nearpod pioneers. We're the trainers for Nearpod, and we have access to a public library. So in other words, anything that I have created, not something that I downloaded from the Nearpod store, but anything I've created, I can put in my store, or in my public library, and I can share that out, and you all can feel free to rob my private library. So that's going to be really big for those who teach something other than the 4 core curriculum, where there's just not a whole lot for tech ed, there's not a whole lot for art right now, not a whole lot for music. So once we're done with this beta and that becomes available to everyone, to be able to access anybody's Nearpod session that they brought in from PowerPoint or Google Slides and Nearpodized will be pretty powerful in terms of the amount of resources you can get from online. So I did mention bringing in from PowerPoint. So if I want to create from scratch, come out here to create, and I can literally build from scratch, but I almost never, I shouldn't say almost, I never build it from scratch. I always start with PowerPoint or Google Slides, because when you build from scratch, you have about 8 different fonts to choose from, 8 different color schemes, and by you know how creative you can be, even if you don't go to somewhere like Slides Carnival that builds these fabulous templates for you, just what you can do in PowerPoint and Slides gives you a lot more options visually. I'm a colorblind male, so that's not too important to me, but I know it is to the people who I'm showing it to, so we do that. So you can either upload files, or it supports click and drag, so you can bring them in from your device, from Google Drive, from OneDrive, and it brings them in as an image. So if you've got animations and things in there, any links, that's going to be dead. It's just you're bringing in an image of your slide. So each slide becomes its own slide here as well. But then, I'm going to go back to my library. Rather than starting from scratch with one, I'm going to grab an existing one. And show you how to edit. Anything you download from the store is also editable. Stop clicking on the sensor. I think my internet is just not keeping up. I know there's things in these folders.
That's interesting. Mine's not cooperating either.
Okay, refreshing helps. So anything you download is editable. Anything you bring in, of course, from PowerPoint or Google Slides is editable as well. There's 3 ways to add a slide. These 2 both do the same thing. They add the new slide at the end of the presentation, and then you have to click and drag it wherever you want, so you can just rearrange things. Whoa. Double click. You can click and drag to rearrange. It supports the control shortcuts as well. I can actually Control-C and delete and copy things. Press down Control and select more than one slide, and I can move them together. Both of these have 3 categories: content, web content, and ad activity. If I know that I've already got 35 slides on here, I want it to be number 36 and then drag it up to number 2, I can right-click in between and add a slide. Notice there's only 2 categories here. Web content becomes part of content. So the different kinds of interactive things are, you did an open-ended question for Santorini, Greece. You've done quizzes, you saw Draw It and Collaborate. I think the only thing in here we didn't do was fill in the blank and matching pairs. Matching pairs is pretty new, it's only a couple months old. We've had a memory test in here that is literally that preschool memory game. Like like it's FISH and FISH. People wanted it to be fish in English and fish in Spanish, or fish and a picture of a fish. That's what matching pairs is. The matching pairs now allows you to have a question and an answer that you match together. And that's the other one that now has a timer as well. And it's the way it works is once I launch it, now you go and you click to make your matches, and if there's 6 pairs there, in the end, if you made 2 mistakes, it shows it took you 8 turns. So your goal was to do it in 6 turns, you did it in 8 turns. So we have a little under 10 minutes. I'm going to share with you a couple resources, but while I'm doing that, this is also doubling as kind of a question and answer time. What else would you like to see? Oh, network change. No, don't do that to me. I am now out of this session. There's that same session. I can resume it where I left off. So there's the fill in the blank. The way the fill in the blank works is you just click and drag. This is the one tool that it does not keep in your report. So you as the teacher won't see what people did here. As the student, in their notes, they do see this looking like that. It's a completed fill in the blank. So these are just the different types of activities that you can insert. Oh, next prize. Find me in this picture. First one to find me in this picture. Circle me and send it in. Bonus points if you can find any other pioneer. So this is in 2 weeks. I know you're here at a conference now, so not likely you'll get funding or budget to go to another one. But if you could ever make it to Transform, it's a weekend conference, so you don't need a sub other than maybe Friday, and it's in Fort Lauderdale in February. Yep, Stephanie found me. All right. So Stephanie, come on up and grab a prize. Oh, and if you're exiting, go ahead and take. We've got the tattoos that nobody wants. We've got pen/stylus and the phone stand, as well as the eraser that nobody wants. They just stick an eraser. Questions? Oh, that's my contact. Again, if you need any of that. DadX8 on Twitter. I follow back anybody who follows me. I do get my meaning out of the number of followers, and I'm just kidding. That wouldn't be much meaning. I'm in the low 200s, so. Oh, something's not right. So if you get these little glitches where it says something's not right, you get a gray screen. Just going back and forth usually solves it. Here we go, 3-month free gold membership. Here comes your code. There it goes. It's coming. You're welcome. There it is. NP, Nearpod, PNFB3. I'll do it multiple times. I'm sorry. NP, PNFB3. If I had somewhere to write it, if you would. Otherwise, it's not loading correctly. NP for Nearpod, PNFB3. So the code doesn't stand for anything. Gives you 3 months of the gold edition. And just a little secret, you can share it with people in your school. Take that back with you. So if you have other people that you would think would enjoy this or would appreciate it, there it is. It's finally all FB3.
Can you say that one more time, please?
Wait,
NP,
NP.
PN, FB3.
Has anyone gotten it to work? Because it keeps saying
No.
invalid.
What is that?
Are you putting the dash in between?
I know.
You are, or maybe.
You put it up in the little box that says code, right?
Oh no, sorry, it's not under code. So
Ah.
that would explain it.
Where did I go?
We go to. Get out of here. Oh, I bet I can't do it on mine because I already have a district account.
It would be in your account preferences under account. I think it would replace it.
See if I can get into a browser without being logged into Nearpod. Alright, so the upgrade. No? I think I'm going to fail you here.
apply promo code?
I tried that.
You tried that too?
Yeah.
Of course, the internet is really helpful.
Yeah. Something's not right. Love those messages.
You don't say.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Hadn't noticed.
So is the district level the best level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have the district level, the gold would be a
Yeah.
step. I mean, you would keep your district level if you tried to use the code.
Wow. She's a gold medalist.
Well, this is a horrible thing to happen right before I ask you to fill out a survey.
I would speak. Such a nerd. Oh yeah. That happened.
And I'm trying to think of even a decent way to, like, when I find out, 2 minutes from now after you leave, how to do this, like how to get that word to you. Well, I will post it on Twitter. Sorry for the bummer ending here. Now I'm logged out.
Slash upgrades to gold. It doesn't work? Well, I can't do it because I'm already gold, so.
Well, you know what, I just realized there is a resources page for this session, so I apologize for this big glitch at the end here. So I will.
I'll just take all your goodies now.
Yeah, bonus goodies for yeah, so when I find that out, I'll put typed and video directions on there for how to do that. So just you go back into the app and look at the resources in here. This presentation is also in those resources as well.
Thank you.
So you got one note tomorrow?
Yes, doing one of these for communication and preparation for students.
Yeah, that's the only place we're able to get any buy-in right now.
Yeah.
Internet is really cold in here. Feet are freezing. You are all my
You are-
tools, and I love it.
You are color coordinated.
Yeah, monochromatic at its best.
That's
Yeah.
right. It works.
I was like, this is really awesome, but hopefully not have to start doing when we started playing, just like you did. So we went to staff mode and it's looking up.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out like I'm showing off what to use in Google Classroom this way. Hitting math with all our curriculum is done in OneDrive, so when we try and convert that over to Google, it doesn't go so well. So hitting math, hitting special ed, all accessibility tools, and there's every training.
I'll take you a eraser there. Thank you. You're welcome.
Every training we do, we start with a handful of things, and one of which is now, because most people don't have email in the cloud, we have like 100 megabytes email storage or something like this, small number. So here's how you create a OneNote to email it or something. I'm just exposing them to OneNote that way.
Yeah.
And then if they can store and see other things, great.
Do you have Office 365? Do you have Google and?
Yeah. That's what I meant by word, by folder, by Google.
Now, is each school pick their focus, or does everybody have both?
Everybody has that.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
To figure out, which of these is the best for what I need to do. Yes.
Yeah, and they take one of each. Again, Google is pretty much one.